Welcome to Learning to Scale. I'm your host, Max 2N, and today I am joined by Jimmy Park, an OG search engine optimizer, and we are going to answer the internet's most burning SEO questions.
Thank you for having me. Let's let the fun begin.
Okay, Jimmy, number one, is SEO dead, and did AI kill it?
SEO is dead, and SEO is dead every single year. In January, every single year, you're going to see a blog article that says SEO is dead for 2021. 2022, 2023, and you're going to see it at 2025. But in all seriousness, AI is definitely one of the things that has changed and will change search optimization the most. And not only from the search engine side and the results page, but also from what content is being produced. Recently, Google's made a change in SGE, or the search generated experience, so that it's using AI for that top search result. And you're going to see in the news and a lot of people on the message boards talking about how much they're losing traffic due to the fact that a lot of these questions are being answered by AI. And there will be some loss of traffic that's coming from the search result that's coming on top. Now, how can you build around that, or how can you plan around that? Well, a lot of websites have been using articles and blogs to answer questions to get a lot of search engine traffic. A lot of organic search results. But how much is that traffic actually worth? We don't know. Well, most companies and most organizations and websites don't track that all the way to the conversion. So how much was that traffic worth anyway? It depends. But one way to get around some of the AI-driven search results is to start to create content that is not so simply answered by 3 sentences of the generative search result that's resulting on top. Let's say, for an example, you are some sort of career builder website, and you used to get a lot of traffic from an article that said something like, "What is a cover letter?" If you type in "what is a cover letter" into Google today, most likely, and very confidently, I'll say, is there's going to be an AI-generated search result at the top, and it's going to answer that question fairly quickly. What is a cover letter? Now, a better strategy that's going to be employed in the future is to create or select phrases to try to target that aren't so easily targeted by the AI search result. For example, cover letter examples. Now, that's not a question that can be easily answered in 3 lines. You're going to need to see examples. There's going to be 2 or 3. You're going to have to scan through those. So that's the type of article that I would rather start to target in the next couple of years than something that is such a simple question, or a who, where, how, why type of question.
It sounds like the takeaway for your, average bear on the internet is make content that's deeper and more rooted in the problem that your kind of ideal customer is searching for.
I would say that to attract search engine traffic that is going to go to content that is produced, it's going to be directed to content, websites, and pages that are on concepts, questions, and information that's not so easily answered in 3 sentences or less.
Next question from the internet, Jimmy. What is technical SEO, and how do I not mess it up?
Well, technical SEO, how do you not mess it up? You know, what's funny is, not funny, but technical SEO sometimes is the easiest thing to fix, and it's some of the things that most websites, or many websites, a majority of the websites, overlook. To go back to the example of a 404 page. A 404 page is a page that used to exist but doesn't exist any longer. And so when you click a link that goes to that old URL, it goes to a 404 page and it says does not exist. That's very easy to fix. And that's something that technical SEO is taking a look at, because Google wants to serve a website that you go to the page that you expect to be there, and then you're going to get a good experience and find exactly what you want. If you are on a website and you click a navigation link, or a link that's going to another page on your own website, and you click it and you get to that page and it's broken, that's not a good experience. Another way that a 404 can affect a site is maybe one day you wrote a really good article and the New York Times has backlink or referenced it, or Wikipedia has referenced that website or that article that you wrote, and now they're at the New York Times and they go to click that link, they get shot over to your site and it doesn't exist, and that's a bad experience. And so that's 2 examples of technical SEO that's very easy to fix. It's within your control. The way you would fix that is do a 301 redirect, which is like forwarding your address from, if you move from one house to another, that you just put a little forwarding address, a 301 redirect, to say, oh, you wanted to go to this URL? Instead, I'm going to push you over to this URL. And so that's a very easy way to fix a page that doesn't exist anymore, but at least there's the next best page that they can go to.
Is there a list of things when you're talking about technical SEO? If I'm a marketer, I got my checklist that I'm working on, make sure I don't have any 404s, make sure my website's fast. What else is on that list for you?
There are hundreds of things on technical SEO, and you could really nerd out on it. A really easy way to find out some of the technical things to fix or to use some of the tools that are out there. There's Ahrefs, there's Screaming Frog, there's SEMrush. And what these tools can do is you can put in your URL on the top of a tool like Screaming Frog, hit a button, and it'll go through and crawl through your entire site and tell you what all those issues are. Another example, if you want another example of something that's fixed, let's say you have a URL in your sitemap that you'd have done the 301 redirect to, but you've listed that to the old page instead of the final page. So why tell the search engines in your sitemap to go to the old page and then your server 301 redirects to the new page? Just update your sitemap to the final destination page to tell Google this is the only one that exists.
Next one. Not ready for the next question?
Give me a hard one.
Okay, here's one that is going to really hit home for the people that have experienced this one, and those that haven't experienced this one should absolutely listen on so they know what to do on the dreaded day when they come in. How do you troubleshoot a sudden loss in website traffic? We've all, on the agency side, we've heard this. Clients come to us all the time where everything was hunky-dory and their website was humming along, getting a bunch of traffic, and then you came into work one sunny Monday morning and everything had dried up. It's like someone turned the faucet on. How does that happen?
It can happen in a number of different ways, but one of the most common ways that happens is due to the fact that there was some sort of update to the Google algorithm. Let's say, for instance, that you're going through and all of a sudden you're getting 15 leads a week, and all of a sudden the next week you go and it's dropped down to 2 and you don't know why. You go and you check some of your search engine rankings and you've realized that things that you used to rank on number 2, that you're ranked number 10. That can occur due to the fact that Google has changed their rules. They have changed their algorithm and their code to say these factors are what used to make a website rank number 1. And now I've made some modifications to that. And now this is the way I'm looking at it. And now since you're not number 1, you drop down to number 10. And then now you've lost all the traffic. So that's usually when a lot of the times, or it's very common for us to get a call or an SOS that says, oh my gosh, I lost all my traffic. Help me, can you fix this?
And in that cases like that, there's not really much you can do about that, I would imagine. I mean, it's kind of Google sets the rules, and maybe today they make a rule change that doesn't impact you, but tomorrow maybe they make a rule change that does impact you, and it's just something of a coin flip? Or is there something to it that you can do to kind of avoid that or minimize the risk of that kind of thing happening to you?
Well, usually because there's so many factors that are going into search that affect a site's ranking. When there's a sudden loss of traffic like that, sometimes afterwards they do a major algorithm change, that there's adjustments that happen a week or two afterwards, or it shakes out and settles down. They have to push it out there, see some of the test results over millions of websites, and then there's some things that adjust it. So I've seen some websites make a change, and then all of a sudden they start recovering it back slowly. In many cases, I would say in majority of the cases, it's a little bit harder to get that ranking to come back instead of just to wait for that. Now, are there things that you can do? Yes. For example, let's say, for instance, you've got a website that you have applied SEO techniques over the last 10 years. Maybe 8 years ago, you hired a search engine optimization consultant that used to do spammy or black hat techniques in which to obtain backlinks, or to use backlink techniques that are somewhat outdated. And now all of a sudden the algorithm has made a change and it's caught up to that technique. There's some things that you can do, which was a little bit more common maybe 5 to 10 years ago, but it's a really good example. You can do something like use the disavow tool. The disavow tool is a tool that they offered websites that basically says this, is that you've done these backlinks, but here's a tool now that you can put in all of the domains that you don't want to count towards your backlink traffic. You want to say, I have disassociated from these websites. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I'm getting a backlink from them. It's a toxic backlink. It is a spammy backlink. It's coming from a non-trusted site, and I don't want anything to do with it. I disavow this link. You can put this in a list, go to Search Console, load it into your disavow tool, and take it away. And sometimes over time, that can help you recover the ranking of a site.
It sounds like the biggest way you can protect yourself from this is probably to be careful about using kind of hacky tactics.
The best way to protect yourself from unexpected ranking changes that have some sort of volatility to your rankings and a risk to your business into the future that you're dependent on a certain amount of traffic or leads coming to the site is to follow reliable ways to attain Google rankings.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is, the rule of thumb that I like to say is, make content or make your website and design it in a way, or create content in a way that's good for humans. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to write an article, don't write an article for SEO's sake. Don't write an article to try to target a keyword in and of itself. Write an article because your audience, your customer, your clients have a question out there that hasn't been answered well, and it's not out there. If it might be some sort of concept, it might be talking about a law or some type of product, or how to use a product that maybe is not out there published, and you feel that there's something that could be said that's going to help them. If you have enough to write about there in detail, even with images or a video or something, to make that a piece of information that people want to go to, then that is something that I would write. There's a lot of cases. There's a website that we support that produces data on particular pieces of software. And so that data is sometimes helpful. For example, maybe how much revenue TikTok makes, or how many downloads of this particular application has been out there. Sometimes that is not only helpful for readers, it might be helpful for a news organization that's looking for a statistic because they're writing about a particular application. And because it's useful, it starts to gain human traffic and backlinks, which ultimately helps with search engine optimization.
We spent a lot of time there talking about the algo, which is kind of an unforced error. You know, if that happens, it is an unforced error in the sense that there was nothing that you could do. It's just you came in one day and the algo changed, and then you got to deal with it. What are some of the most common self-inflicted wounds that lead to this kind of sudden drop in traffic?
The most common self-inflicted wound that creates a drop in traffic is an update to a website. Let's say, for instance, you've got some company that's made a brand change, or a company that wants to change from one URL to another. Another way is that they change from one application of a web hosting platform from WordPress to HubSpot. And when they've done that, they've changed something like the structure of their URL. Maybe they took this website and pushed it all the way from WordPress to HubSpot, and everything's the same. However, because of the change of the application, maybe there's a hyphen in the URL that's a little bit different. It's the exact same, but this one has a hyphen and this one doesn't. So they do this huge website project, they do the migration, and then 2 to 3 weeks later, they realize that their rankings have dropped, their lead volume has dropped, or their traffic has dropped. And they don't know why. And the reason why, one of the most common reason why, is because they did not do the migration with SEO best practices. One of the clearest examples of that is to not map a 301 redirect. 301 redirects is something that we just talked about, which is like a forwarding address from an old website to a new website. And if you don't do that, or if some websites will change a domain and move something over and take every one of those pages and redirect them all the way only to the home page. 301 redirect should be from a page to a page, the old page to the best, most relevant and similar new page of the website, from the old website to the new website. The closest match to that page for page mapping is the way that it should be done, because whether or not it is a URL that came from a backlink or some sort of inter-website link that's coming to that, they're expecting to go to that page, and all of a sudden they click that and they're going to the home page of another website. That it's not relevant, it's not useful. So a lot of times we see that on mergers and acquisitions, where one website is now being sunsetted altogether and being absorbed into the new company that's acquired them. And so now they've taken all of those web pages and pushed them over to the home page instead of finding the best page that it could be mapped to onto the new company due to the fact that they're being merged into another website.
Is there anything else that's pretty key when you're going through that kind of big website update, or you acquired a company or you were acquired, but there's a merger of sites, apart from like the 301 redirect sound, making sure that the pages go to the correct new page is a big one. Is there anything else?
Well, anytime that you have a 301 redirect, and although that's the best way to transfer a lot of that traffic, there is usually some traffic that is lost or some rankings that is lost if you go from one to another, but you've changed the URL structure and then you're forced to do a 301 redirect. What we like to do is try at the point in time that there's some sort of upgrade or some sort of update on the new site, make it better. Whether it is make it the website is a little faster, maybe there's a little bit more content, maybe the UX is even better. But at the same time that you're making that change, to try to make it so that the new site is a little bit better, because when you move from one domain to another, the whole site's going to get re-indexed. What it means is that Google's going to send its robots and spiders all through that, figure out what the new website is, take an image of that or index it into their databases and say, oh, this is the new one. And if they take a look at it and says, oh, it's about the same, everything's changed, there's usually a little bit of a drop. But if they crawl it and they see that there's some improvements, it's a little bit faster, the information is clearer, the usability is better. Because they're already taking a look at it, you might actually get some website improvements due to that crawl. Outside of that change of the website, there's some housekeeping items that you should do. For example, the new site usually has a new sitemap. There's a tool that most people know, but a lot of websites or a lot of companies don't use, which is called Search Console. And so in Search Console, it's a free tool by Google, and that helps you with information around search and how Google is indexing your site. And you can submit your sitemap. The sitemap is usually your website.com/sitemap.xml. And it's a file that gives basically a map of your website. And so when you have that and you move to a new site, you can go into Search Console, submit your sitemap, and you're basically asking Google to crawl your site again. And so after the update or after a website upgrade, you can resubmit your sitemap, tell Google to recrawl my site, and then over the next 2 to 3 weeks, monitor to make sure that you didn't miss anything. Monitor an uptick in any type of errors, and Search Console is a good way to see that.
Next question from the internet. Let's go. Do backlinks still matter? 2024, July 25th.
Do backlinks still matter? Yes, backlinks still matter because popular websites are going to get backlinks. Now, do they matter as much as they used to? No. And first of all, let's say what is a backlink and why they're important. Let's say, for instance, you're a car mechanic and you've launched a website. Back in the day, most of the search engines would go to your website and say, Max Car Mechanic, and your website, you might write, hey, I've been here for 25 years. I work on all of these things, and I'm the best and most trusted car mechanic in the neighborhood.
Now, I am.
Yeah, well, I could trust you, but maybe I don't, because every car mechanic might say that they're the best. But if now this blogger over here in your neighborhood says, oh, by the way, I went to this car mechanic, Max's Car Mechanic, and they were so trustworthy and they gave me a good deal. And then on this neighborhood community website that they post, do you know a good car mechanic? Yes, I do. Take a look at this website here. I went there just last week and it was honest and got my car running perfectly. That is a backlink that's going back to your site. It's basically a vote of trust or a vote of confidence or a vote to say, this is where you can find this information reliably and I'm vouching for it. And that's what the difference was back in 1996 when Google was launched. Their search engine was different because they started to use backlinks. Now, over time, search engine optimization experts and people who were trying to game the system would start to manufacture backlinks. They would do things such as launch a website solely for backlinks. They would do things also such as going to another car mechanic, but they may be 2 states away and say, give me a backlink to me and I'll give a backlink to you. And there was all these sort of primitive ways to get backlinks. Now, there are some very clever ways to get backlinks, and there's some real ways that people manufacture backlinks. I can say that the algorithm's getting smarter and smarter every day. There's more signals that it can take a look at, from web speed to inner links to how many 404s a website has to how many backlinks. But with all of these different signals, backlinks, are they still important? Yes, but are they as important as they were 10 years ago? Probably not. The other thing that's important to know about backlinks is that quantity used to be the number that counted, as many backlinks as you possibly could. The better that the algorithm has gotten, especially Google, and Google's the majority of the search, the algorithm has gotten much better at understanding what's a relevant backlink, and then how trustworthy is the site that's giving you the backlink, how trustworthy they are. And so they've got rankings throughout all of the websites to see how much trust. So a backlink from the New York Times is going to be worth much more than a backlink from a local business or something. And so the quality of the backlink, and that has shifted over time to where quality was very important and now quantity, but it's very heavy to the quality side than it is the quantity side. I've seen websites that have 15 backlinks outrank something that had 150 or 350 backlinks because of the quality of the backlink.
How do you assess the quality of a backlink?
Basically, from what I was saying, is how much trust the site has, and that trust comes from various methods. It could be how many pages it has. It could be how many backlinks it has. An interesting one is the age of a domain. The algorithm will follow what's hard to fake. One of the signals of how trustworthy a site is how long it has existed under a single owner, and how much that content has been the same on that website, hasn't gone through a business change, or they lost their domain and then somebody else bought it and they tried to swipe it and make it something of their own. But how long has a domain existed under one entity? That's hard to fake. And so that is one of the clearest signals that a site is trustworthy, and one of the signals that Google uses.
Can I dominate search rankings by pumping out a ton of AI-generated content?
Maybe. And the reason why is because Google is going to rank what's the best content for the user for the question that's being asked, or for what the search query of what they're searching for. Now, the question is, can AI do that better than a human? I think it can do it just as good as a human, and definitely with human assistance. And so people who've used AI, you've typed in a question and you get a response, or you could ask it to do something for you, write a cover letter for you. And it'll come out, and there's probably some things that sound a little bit awkward or made an error. And then you can change the prompt and make it a little bit better. And then you finally refine that thing till it's something that's usable. And that can come from a various AI prompts. But it's going to take some work. It takes some work to get AI to write something that's very useful and compelling to the user. And so at the point where there have been tests that, can you rank on AI? And yes, it has been done. Now, can you go out and start pumping out hundreds and hundreds of articles and push this out there and get ranked and dominate rankings? Probably not. It's going to take a lot of work, and likely that content is not going to be useful to the reader or to the user or to the visitor of the website. And sooner or later, it's going to be caught as spammy content and not going to get ranked, and maybe even get some sort of penalty or algorithmic penalty to the site.
So the answer is maybe use your common sense.
The answer is I would use AI to build content if ultimately it is better than what a human or any human that you have access to can write.
Do you think it would be fair to add that you probably need to have some source information you're feeding the AI? I mean, a generative AI, like a large language model, is just ingesting the whole internet and then outputting whatever it thinks the next word should be based on stuff that's way more advanced than I would have the technical expertise to describe. But at the end of the day, it's not creating new information. Whereas if you have a podcast, let's say, and we take this transcript of this podcast, we might not be able to get a blog post that we would deem worthy of the OpenScope website, but we might get a first draft that we could send to a writer and say, hey, polish this up. Do you think you need some kind of input like that, be it a podcast or a video or data set or something, to be able to do this well?
What I would say is take a look at the search engine rankings over the last 2 to 3 months and how that's changed. And one of the things that you're going to see is you're going to see websites like Reddit start to bubble to the top much more so than you used to. And why is that? It's because Reddit is a curation of multiple responses from humans. And that information is very valuable. It's the same, one of the biggest reasons why Amazon became so successful is because they had products that had enough of a community to provide reviews to give you true feedback on products. Yelp was the same way. Yelp was based on human reviews, and that human review and various opinions is very good to understand whether or not that restaurant or that product or that answer to that question is good. And so can you take information and provide something that's useful? Of course. That is why Google is using the AI response up top, because they've tested it and it has provided an answer, and their algorithms and their calculation of data has shown that they answered this question, we answered with AI, and they did not search for something else. And so can you make content with AI that's going to rank? Yes, but human content, human opinion, human interaction, human creation is always going to be of value and something that search engines will recognize.
How do you create content that's for the human, that's about the right thing, interesting and engaging?
It really boils down to how do you write content that's engaging to the human? It's really about understanding what they're looking for. And I could say, oh, yes, understand your client and understand your audience, and this is what they're looking for, and this is what they wonder. And that's sort of a generic response.
Yeah, the viewers of this show, they want the real talk.
Okay. Let's say, for instance, a client, we had the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. Okay. And so we wanted to see what type of things that we could write about to get some search engine traffic. And here's a technique that I did use and I do use often. I will pick the biggest website of a competitor or a like organization that has the most keywords that rank in the top 100. Why? Because it gives me a huge data set that I can sit there and I can skim the 10,000 search results that I already know that a like organization is ranking on. And I can scan through them and see, oh, this is what they're ranking on. This is what's pertinent. And this is what Google is already giving them rankings. That's a good place to start with ideas. But where I went is I started to go on several breast cancer communities, forums, and I actually went through and I started looking at what are the questions that people are asking. And one of the questions that I found that was interesting is, if I were going to go in and get a mastectomy, what do I need to pack for the hospital the day before? How long am I going to be there? It was the pack list for the pre-surgery day. That was something that no search engine or SEMrush report of database is going to tell me. I had to go pour through 4 to 5 of them, and I saw that question on 3 forum posts, and I said, that is something that we should write about. And that's what we did. But sometimes you can use the data to point you in the right direction. But sometimes to go in and really find out what the humans are looking for and what questions that they need answered that they're seeking from all of these different places, and it doesn't reside on a particular website because the question is being asked in forum, but there's no page about it. That's something that is good to write about.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty tidy little formula or framework that a lot of people could apply in any space to find good topics, right? Because if you just put yourself in that user's shoes, you're probably not going to a forum and writing a post to get responses if you found the answer on Google, right? And so if you see something and it's being repeated across multiple forums, then there's a lot of people that are all looking for it, presumably doing some research, not finding it, and then going to the forum. Could probably, be a tidy little tip.
Exactly. And to expand a little bit about that technique of SEMrush, because a lot of people, SEMrush is very popular and people are using that. But to go back to that example of finding a competitor, if you find a competitor or a like organization, what I'll do is I'll go and I'll try to find the biggest one. And the reason why is because they have a huge data set. Now, let's say, for instance, I go to my competitor, and that competitor, I've got 3 of them out there, and one of them ranks on 1,000 keywords in the top 100 on SEMrush. One has 2,000, but one has 100,000 keywords that they're ranking in the top 100 places of Google. I know that site is big, and I know that site has a lot of gravity, like a huge star that's attracting planets and asteroids, and comets are flying by because it's pulling in all of these keywords. That's the one I'm going to choose. Then I go into the tool and I see that's out there. Now that's all the keywords it's ranking from 1 to 100. Anything that's past 30, 40, 50, 60 is likely going to be irrelevant because it's getting into the 8th page, but who cares about that? So what I'll do is I'll filter on the top 20s. Now I know that this website, this huge website that has 100,000 keywords that is ranking, now I'm taking only the top 20 places, meaning that it's in the first page or the second page. Now I've got this tight set of keywords that's fairly relevant because it bubbled up to the top of Google search engine. And now I'm using Google as a tool to say, your algorithm is giving this website at least the relevance to the second page of all these terms. These are the ones that I can start to take a look at. Now, if I want to boil that even more, I can go in and take the top 3. Or I could take one page of that and maybe go for a specific product or a specific service. And now I'm only doing it for that particular page. And now I'm bringing in that focus because search engine optimization and search engine rankings is like gravity. There's 2 things that it takes into place: how much mass, how much size of the website, and how much focus. That page might be very focused on this sliver of keywords. So I'll start to pull the top 5 or the top 3 off of only this exact match page, and then it would give me some insight as to what Google has already deemed the best keyword for a particular service, page, or product.
Okay, Jimmy, here's one that I've been hearing a lot from clients, and I've also been seeing a lot on the internet, and it is brand building important for SEO, and if so, why? And I think in this context, brand building being things like starting a podcast, making videos for YouTube, things like that. And so the question being is, does that matter for SEO? And like, how is my podcast going to help my SEO rankings?
Is brand building important for SEO? Yes. And not only is brand building important for SEO, brand building is the way to SEO. Let's talk about it in the form of, let's pick a company, Uber. Uber, when they first started, there's some company that's out there that has developed a concept in which people take their cars, they load up an app, and they pick up strangers to take them like a taxi cab. Whoever thought that was going to be anything? But when I live in New York City, and when I start hearing about Uber, I'm like, okay, let me download this thing and try, because someone told me try Uber, and I had a friend that did that, or somebody posted on Facebook and said, oh, have you tried this thing Uber? And someone picks you on the car. Okay, I'm going to try it. So then I download the app and I try it. And what I found is when I went in there, the driver was so polite. And I realized it's because I can rate the driver and they can rate me. Everybody has to be a little bit more civil. And it was a very pleasant experience. And I wrote about it. And now the New York Times writes about it. And then now it's on a blog, or it's in an article, or it's in a post. And that is how brands get built, because people start talking about them. And the way that people start talking about them is they start to write about them on the internet. They start talking about them in podcasts. They start backlinking them in posts, in communities and online communities. And that's how search engines are out there taking a look. The search engines are so good. If I asked you, Max, go on a whiteboard, and if a brand starts to gain momentum and starts to gain traffic and followers and a loyal following and customers, and the revenue starts to grow and they start to get investment, what are all the things, and where are you going to find them? You might come up with a list of websites, investment websites, New York Times, Facebook posts, tweets, all of these things that happen when a brand gets built, and it's brand building, and that's actually how SEO works. The algorithm goes out there and sees all of this, puts it into the algorithm and says, I see this momentum, this trust of this site happening. I'm going to start pushing this to number 1 and see what happens.
Interesting. I have a bone to pick with this answer a little bit, because I hate it when anyone uses an example of a company that is a noun or a verb. Is Uber a noun or is it a verb? I guess it's both, because we could say we're going to Uber somewhere or we could grab an Uber.
For
But
Google.
but yeah, but point being, Uber, Google, these words that are a thing, that are in the common lexicon, or maybe even not that, but companies that have an embedded virality in the app, right? Like Uber has these. In the early days, it's significant network effects. I take an Uber the first time. It's like magic. I want to tell all my friends about it. They want to tell all their friends about it. They want to tell all their friends about it. And so people are tweeting about it, writing about it, and it gets this buzz. But if, I don't know, I'm a software company that makes note-taking software, or I'm a camera company, or I'm an e-commerce store that sells headphones, or, global payroll, whatever it might be, I'm a business that doesn't have, where it's unlikely that I'm going to go viral. And if I am going to go viral, probably it's because something good happened. Does it matter then? Like, how does this kind of brand building in those cases move the needle on SEO?
Well, it does still matter, but it will happen in a different scale. So let's say, for instance, you're a company that builds HR software. Are you going to enter in the common lexicon? Are people going to be talking about you at dinner? Likely not. But will there be some sort of backlink because you attended a conference and was a speaker? Is there a link from one of your clients that's giving you a review? Maybe you won't be on every podcast or the most popular podcast that's out there, but you might be on one. Maybe you start to put webinars on YouTube and that gets crawled. So you don't necessarily have to move the world to rank number one, because you're not going up against every other website that's out there to try to penetrate to the first page. You might only have to be going against 5 to 10 competitors, and it doesn't take that much to do so. But I think the important thing to note is a popular brand is not just going to build a website and have 10 backlinks from articles as guest posts. It's not full enough. It's not a portfolio of signals that are given to Google to say, I trust this now to give it the number one ranking.
Okay, Jimmy, another question from the internet. How do you keep up to date with what's changing with respect to AI in search? The person asking this question probably feels a little overwhelmed. There's new news articles coming out every day. There's a new AI release. They don't know what tools to use. You go a lot of directions with this. We could talk about AI in the SERP. We could talk about AI for creating content. Mm-hmm. World's your oyster.
No, it's a good question. And the reason why I took some time to think about it is because it's a trap. It's a trap that so many people think that they have to think of every single little thing on search and all of these little nuances and AI here and this backlinking technique, or how do I write this content? And the truth of the matter is you can get most of search by knocking out the fundamentals. All of these little brilliant basics. Get the keyword right. Place it in the title tag. Write a good H1 tag. Have enough keyword density. Be able to explain the information that you have on your webpage in a simple way that's easy to read. One of the things that I share a lot for analysts that are working in SEO is that language sometimes is a little bit too complex. I give them this analogy of Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway was one of the most popular authors in American literature. The stories are pretty good. Some of them are fairly simple. But what made him so consumable is that he wrote at about a 4th, 5th grade level. And sometimes just writing it in a way that's easy to read is going to help search and help you get rankings. You can go down a wormhole of information to try to understand how to do search, but in 95% of the websites that I audit, and I audit probably 300 to 400 websites a month, is that only 1 out of 30 of them, 2 out of 30 of these websites are optimized in a way that they've done all of the fundamentals. But let me answer the question in a different way. What are some of the ways that people can learn search? 1, read a book. Get an SEO for Dummies. You're going to learn so many concepts there that are going to teach you things that are going to take you from now until another 10 years. Another way is to follow some of the recent articles and publications. For example, Search Engine Land is a very good tool to read, and they're up to date on algorithm changes and things to watch out for. There are blogs that are out there. Google actually creates an office hours for organic search. You can Google them on YouTube, find that and subscribe to these podcasts. They come out with one every few weeks and listen to them. Google used to be very, very secretive on everything on search. They wouldn't give you any answer. And there was a person named Matt Cutts that would come out every now and then and give you some guidance or let you know something was about to happen. But it was much more secretive than it is now. Now there are liaisons that go out there and will share some information and answer some of the most popular questions on their podcast, which is something good to listen to. And so those are some resources if you do want to nerd out on SEO and learn more. And it is good to be up to date on current information. While I do believe that the fundamentals today, and the most basic fundamental, is write content and create content that's good for humans, is the thing that's going to be able to preserve search engine rankings. If you follow that rule from now for the next 10, 20 years, you're never going to have a risk that your website's going to drop from some algorithm change because you tried some trick. At the same time, I do like to follow some of these publications and these blogs and these podcasts because, one, I think it's fun, I like it, and two, it does help and it does give you some understanding on what the search engines are looking for and how to eke out some of those extra 1, 2, 3% of ranking. You might be on number 3 and a tip might get you to number 2 or number 1, but most of the tips, and 80% of it, is going to get you from ranking 80 to number 10 or number 12 just by doing the fundamentals.
Rapid fire question time. Questions from the internet. Why are there 404 errors on my website?
Because you used to have a page that you have now unpublished or gotten rid of, and you haven't told everybody that it is gone. And so it is still discoverable by the Google index, but it doesn't exist anymore, and you need to fix it.
What is internal linking?
Internal linking is when you have content on a site, and somewhere in that content, you create a hyperlink to another page on your website to reference a concept, a phrase, or a piece of information that says, if you want to learn more about this thing, click here, and it goes into another page into your own website.
Does content length matter for SEO?
Does content length matter for SEO? I believe so, yes. And in most cases, write the best content for the user so they get the information. However, in the real world, most of the informational pages or articles or most of the pages that rank in the top 10 for competitive words have more than 1,000 words of content. And what you'll see is that pages that have 1,500, 3,000 words of content will usually outrank those that have 200 to 500 words of content.
How do I get keywords into my articles without keyword stuffing?
Keyword stuffing is, let's talk about what that means. Keyword stuffing is when someone has a particular keyword or maybe 2 keywords, and they want to repeat that keyword over and over in the content so that there's a high keyword density. There are a couple of different ways that you can see whether or not you're keyword stuffing. There are some general rules about how much keyword density that a web page may have on a particular keyword. One way to do that is to mix up the keyword. And for any type of object or word or keyword phrase, there may be a word, but there's also synonyms. You may sell shoes, but shoes can be a sneaker. It could be a slipper. It could be footwear. And so if you were to talk about and have a 10-minute long speech about shoes, you would probably use some of those synonyms or secondary or tertiary type words. So you don't have to stuff that one single keyword in there. You can use different types of related words or concepts that make sense when you're talking about that keyword. The second thing is read it out loud. Does it sound weird? Does it sound like you're repeating a keyword phrase? The metaphor example that I use in this is, have you ever seen something like the Daytona 500 and the winner wins a race? Mm-hmm. Then they go to the winner's circle and then they start to say, oh, Jimmy Johnson, what did you think about winning the Daytona 500? And they'll say something such as, my Chevy race car drove well today, and the Pepsi something or another.
My Pirelli tires.
Exactly.
I was so glad to be hydrated with Gatorade.
Exactly. Now, as you can see, I probably picked the wrong sponsors for Jimmy Johnson because I'm not necessarily a NASCAR fan, but you get the point, which is that Jimmy Johnson or race car drivers start to stuff their phrases with their brand sponsors because they want to appreciate their brand sponsors, but they're stuffing that keyword in there. That's the same thing that people do with websites. So if it reads funny, if it reads awkward, if it reads as though it's an unnatural thing to say, that's a pretty good sign that your keyword's stuffing.
Okay, Jimmy, here's another one. SEO takes a long time to bear fruit in some cases. This isn't happening overnight here. So if you hire an SEO expert or an agency, how do you know they're doing a good job without waiting 2 years to see if you ended up on the first page?
Well, the first thing, it's hard to know exactly if an SEO company is doing a good job right off the bat because SEO takes time. There's few and far between that there are cases that you can make a couple of different changes and then the whole website starts to rank higher. Now, there are some cases and many cases that you can make a change and a page or two will get significant rankings, and that's always a good sign to see if they can do it. But I would say some very specific things to look for to know not only that they're doing a good job, but here's what SEO companies should be doing at first. First of all, they should do an analysis of all three facets of what we talked about of a website. Do an analysis of the content, do analysis of their technical excellence, and their site authority. They should be taking a look at all three of those things and to see if there's any quick things to fix. Are there any risks that are out there? Are there any things that provide benefit, but it's easy to do? It's a very easy fix to fix 404. So why not sweep and do those early? Because you can do that at the same time as you're building content, making some technical change on the website that takes a long time. But there should always be something to do on the website that Google sees. You don't have to wait months to do planning and content calendar and review this blog article and get it approved, and now it's month 3 before you made any changes to the site. I would say one of the first things to look for is what's the low-hanging fruit. Your agency, your SEO consultant should be finding things that are low-hanging fruit, decently, positively impactful changes that they can implement very quickly, at the same time planning for those medium-term fixes and planning for the long-term fixes. Another thing that I would look at are some red flags. Some of those red flags are, let's say, for instance, they want to push out some blogs and they rather push out 10 blogs that are only 200 words of content and they're not that useful, that they're just talking sort of fluff and nothing deep and nothing really helpful, but they're making content for content's sake. I would say that's a red flag to look for of a company that's using an old and dated technique. Some backlinking techniques. If you see them acquiring backlinks very quickly from low trustworthy sites or sites that aren't relevant to the business that you're in, that would be a red flag. Or agency or service that you are manufacturing backlinks. I would be very wary of companies that do that. And number 2, if they are doing that, I would certainly ask to take a look at them and look at them very closely. Go to the page, navigate, see where that backlink is. Go check the rest of the site and see, does every other page of the website that you got a backlink to have random backlinks to everything from a laundromat to a car mechanic to software to recipe to selling surfboards. If they're talking about this and giving backlinks to all those and then you just got another one, that means it's a pretty bad backlink and that would be a red flag. So some of the things that to look at from a good SEO agency and some of those red flags that you'll see from bad SEO agencies.
Jimmy, thanks so much for joining me on the Learning to Scale podcast for this rapid fire questions from the internet episode thing that we had going here.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot.
Yes, it was my pleasure to be here. And I'll say if there's any more questions, sometimes I answer them on Reddit, but you can toss them in the comments. I'll come back and read the comments and I'll try to help anybody who has asked any other questions.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you enjoyed this conversation, hit the like button, say hello in the comments. If you have any questions we didn't answer, you can drop them in the comments. Maybe we'll make another video, or you can blow up Jimmy's email, jimmy@opuscope.com. If you want him to do a SEO audit on your site, slide in his inbox and we'll put something together. Maybe we'll record it on the internet, do it live.
Give it a shot, a live audit.
Live audit. Subscribe so you know when it's coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.